get started to our board curriculum committee, and we will start off with any public comments. Scott?
All right, Scott Van Salkema. Since this is a curriculum committee, I decided to ask what the school does regarding pushing for possible trades in the future. My daughter ran the FHC Decisions Instagram page, and there were only 2 kids. One that was going in for electrician, and the other one was going to GRCC for welding. And I don't know if you guys have been following, but we have a severe lack of people going into the trades. I mean, Mike Rowe, I don't know if you guys follow him, Dirty Jobs, and there's hundreds of thousands, if not millions of open positions for plumbing, electrical, welding, this or that. Not everyone needs to go to college. And again, I don't know if you saw this, there was recently a school in the eastern part of the country where kids were graduating from high school with welding certificates, getting jobs from anywhere to $55,000 to $70,000 a year. And I know that Casey, is it still KCTC? And I know there's like a lottery and there's only so much room there for that. But again, if there's any way that we can maybe start fostering kids, Mike Rowe goes, they asked, where are all the kids? Where are all the people that can do these jobs? He said they're in 8th grade right now. And so I don't know if there's anything that the district can do to maybe at least sort of, not necessarily glorify, but at least encourage, again, and I'm assuming the teachers, they know the kids. I know my daughter's teachers, they knew her, they knew what she wanted to do, and they do get a good feel for that. I know some of the people here are teachers, and they can read maybe the ones that aren't maybe the best academics, but they can get really focused in on something physical that really excites them. And we need that. I mean, some of the richest people around this area were trades workers. I pulled up to a guy in a Ferrari convertible. I asked what he does. He says he's a roofer. He owned Irish Roofing. The guy that owned Service Professor, he was, plumbing, HVAC, and all that. He sold that for tens of millions of dollars. So there's a lot of value in the trades. And like I said, we do need that, and that's something that can never be outsourced, and AI can't replace it. So if there's anything that the board can do to address that, that'd be great. So just my 2 cents. Thank you.
Thanks, Scott. Moving down the agenda to updates, finance and operations. Julie?
All right, thank you. Yesterday we held our board finance meeting. Not a lot on the action items, but we had several in the discussion section. So we talked about monthly financial statements through April. We gave a brief bond construction update. You guys have access to that. Thanked everybody for the operating millage. We are super excited about that and our support of our community. Ensuring that we receive full funding is critical. So that was great. We made our debt payments. We do that twice a year. This is the larger of the 2 because we do principal at this time too. So that was about $26.5 million. And then Tina talked briefly a little bit about some changes that we're doing related to our debt funds and our capital projects funds and investing in trying to make sure we're covered with that insurance and that $250,000 cap. So we've got some things in place for that. But for action items that you'll see under the consent agenda for Monday, we have a request to purchase some additional video surveillance cameras. And we've been continuing to go through that, and some of these are really addressed with gaps from our safety review that we got by our third party. So we're requesting 32 interior cameras and 8 exterior cameras. From People Driven Technology, so it's about $127,000. That will come from that state Section 31A safety grant. You'll see a request to approve the first year of renewal for our Chartwells for our food service management company. Remember last year we bid that out, so this current school year was the first year to meet that contract. And within the finance packet, you'll see a thick document that's included. The ISD always provides a lot of support for us. They really give us all the information on all the funds, but as a local board, you're really just addressing the general fund, and we're recommending that you support that general fund budget that's been proposed. Just 2 more things that were on the list. The second to last one was related to audit services, so we're again recommending we continue with Mayor Stierson for our audit for this fiscal year. And the last was a small property tax reimbursement. It's not small. it's $132,000, a little over $130,000 from the city of Kentwood for refunded property taxes. It's a pretty brief meeting yesterday, a little over half an hour, so if you've got questions on any of those items that will be on the consent agenda, feel free to give me a call.
Thanks, Julie. Moving into the instruction side of things, before we do the presentation, just want to talk a little bit about some restructuring that we have done or are in the process of doing, and that deals with our MTSS coaches. We're changing that model based on feedback that we've received from both principals and teachers and some of our own student survey that's out there to try to meet the needs of our students. So that coaching position, if you will, is going to turn into, I think we landed on the name supervisor of MTSS, and it's going to take on more of a, we're not calling it, it's not an assistant principal by any means, but it's going to support the building in terms of with student behaviors, PBIS, and that sort of thing, attendance, and just trying to support them that way. So we're excited about that change and the supports that are coming to our building principals. Again, this was done in collaboration with the building principals, trying to meet their needs. Ben and I would go to each of the buildings, both in the fall and then again in the spring, and meet with the principals. And over again, we heard concerns about needing help and support, just managing behavior. Not that it was out of control, but it was a lot in terms of the frequency and sometimes the intensity. So we'll be looking to support the elementaries in that way. We still retain some of the coaching positions, but more at the district level. So we'll maintain our GT services as we have them now. We'll have support for our MLL students. We'll do a K-12 district math coach, K-12 district ELA coach, and then also an early childhood coach as well to provide more support for our junior kindergarten and our early learners within the district. So I don't know if you have any questions about that, but it's something that I wanted to make you aware of. And we're able to accomplish that through some shifting of $31A. Currently our coaches were funded with the majority of our $31A funds. So it's something that we're kind of looking at funding sources and moving some things around.
How many instructional coaches did we have, like, across the?
That's a great question, Holly. So we had one in every elementary. Was it 10? 15.
And then how many of those 15 positions are we actually between offering the support in the 5 categories you mentioned, and then moving over to the, is it MTSS?
Yeah, so every person will have the ability to, so we're gonna open up those positions to interview, because what we wanna do is match passion and skill set with the position. Some of our MTSS coaches, their desire is to become an element, at some point in time they want to become an administrator. Others want to remain as coaches, and some we've heard want to teach. The problem with becoming an administrator, lots of times school districts are looking for people who have experience. You can't get experience unless you're in the job. So this is a great, it's a great move for the district because it allows us to, pardon the sports expression, to sort of build a bench in terms of giving people that experience, that administrative experience. So we're sort of building, I don't know.
That's weird, would it just get
Yeah,
darker?
it just didn't, yeah.
So that allows us to sort of grow our own, and then also provide the skills and the experiences that we'd be looking for future administrators.
So I guess my question is all 15, let's say there's 15 people right now, right? Mm-hmm. Are all 15 people going to stay, or is there going to be a transition where some people are not going to?
We have, it might not be their first spot, but again, people are going to be able to apply to where their passion areas are. So if they see themselves wanting a position still coaching, there's a few of those spots that are still available. If they want to move into that supervisor role, those are available. And like I said, we've heard from some that really want to,
Go back to the
return
classroom.
Yeah, no one's going to be displaced though, in terms of like, hey, we don't have a spot for you in the district.
And then the finances, so they will all kind of, what's your question? I don't know. Will they all kind of stay the same as you're kind of readjusting, like the budget for that, or is that?
That part I don't know, because I don't know what every person makes. Is that what your question
Yeah, like
is,
if,
Holly?
like if instructional coaches all make a certain amount and we have 15 of them, is that the same amount of money that's gonna be? Like I know you said that they're not gonna be a supervisor position, but it's kind of supporting with students. Will that change the pay grade, or will it be an administrative role for, you know what I mean, like?
It could, depending on where they are. For some, that might be more, for some, that might be less. I think those are decisions that they would need to kind of factor in. I mean, we budgeted for a range.
Okay.
Hopefully I'm answering your question.
Yeah, I was just saying, like if the amount is this much
Yep.
and there's the amount this much on the end, I get it, if it's, kind of the range and stuff, but I was just kind of saying budget-wise, are we gonna land on the same amount? Or is it gonna be a higher cost, moving all the parts and pieces around? Does that
Every
make
year it
sense?
becomes a higher cost if you
Right.
increase wages, which is what we're doing, and many of these reflect, the coaches were on teacher salary contracts, so those are there, and then the supervisory role has a different range, that's what he's referring to, so the amount of overall dollars probably will change, or it didn't increase, it has to, simply because we're increasing the wages of our employees.
So that's was what I wanted to share with you, at least from the instruction side of things, but I'm excited to invite our friends from Meadowbrook here. They're going to talk about a resource that you recently approved. And I think I'm excited about this presentation because it will just give you a glimpse of the technical, they say reading is not rocket science, but I would dare say it's pretty darn close. So I'm going to turn it over to Ashley and Mitch and Samantha.
What you're saying?
Yeah.
No, I was saying Scott had your slide deck, so you didn't need your laptop.
Oh.
You know what? I think y'all look great over there.
This is me posted up, so I wanted the clicker to be
Yeah.
the A because I did it all, so.
Do you want to close that?
Yes.
I just wanted a good aim for the laptop, so I could click, because you don't click here, right? You click on the laptop. Okay.
I'm going to push that forward.
You can click.
I'm
Oh.
afraid. Do you want me to click it for you? Or you've got to
I
click it?
think I got it. Okay.
She's so efficient. Here we go.
I'm Ashley Jones. I'm the MTSS instructional coach at Meadowbrook.
I'm Mitch Mox. I teach second grade on the neighborhood side at Meadowbrook.
And I'm Samantha Billings. I teach second grade on the immersion side at Meadowbrook.
And if you want to go ahead and go to the next slide.
Okay.
They did all the hard work, keep going. They
Oh.
introduced themselves. I was gonna introduce themselves.
Oh,
They're
sorry.
friendly and eager. And we're just really glad to have this team supported by their instructional coach. Again, just giving you, I know we had some questions about quick reads, but giving you a quick glimpse into this. And then also this team, professional learning that'll be used, for years to come. Again, just letting you know too, the quick reads that we just board approved are really strong and evidence-based. They're supporting that building of fluency, and we have comprehension as well, which you'll see. So I'm just gonna hand it over.
Awesome. All right, so Quick Reads, as we know, we've talked about, is a fluency-based program. It is research-based, as Kim mentioned. And within that program, the goal is to take a student who's not generally just reading words, it's helping them read more fluently to build that comprehension and tying vocabulary and high-frequency words to support that as well. So we have this active view of reading model here, and it really supports the whole reader. So we have the active self-regulation, which here we need obviously that motivation and engagement from students, but we also will look at the comprehension strategies and vocabulary strategies, word recognition strategies, literally all of the strategies to support a kid to learn how to read and to read to learn, which is helping them comprehend the text as well. Then we bridge into this area here where we're going to have some vocabulary knowledge, but also taking that word recognition. They've learned different patterns in reading. So building that and really becoming more fluent in understanding and just having that rote memory because they've orthographically mapped that into their mind. They've just learned that pattern and connecting that with our language comprehension and this process of putting everything together to really
fluently read. So this program really capitalizes on repeated reading and getting kids to really take the time to reread a passage, build that vocabulary, build the high frequency word knowledge, and to also build the understanding of the phonics skills that they've learned. So really putting all those pieces together will free up their mind from having to really think deeply about it and really help them work on their fluency as well. Oop, sorry, a little fast. So this is kind of like an assessment schedule here of how you would run an assessment. This is an example of a benchmark assessment here, but the first thing you would do is you'd want to assess a student. Sometimes we've used the MAC Fluency, which has been very helpful to help us gauge that as well. But the program comes with a set of benchmark assessments that you can use to assess a student. You would interpret that benchmark afterwards to figure out where you'd want to place a student. So you would set either a goal for a student based on how many words per minute you want them to increase by the end of like an intervention cycle. It could be 4 to 6 weeks, and we'll go over that a bit as well later. And or you can do a goal setting meeting with your students and really leverage their ownership in that and help them to advocate for their own learning and have investment into their own learning and have them set a goal reasonably that they want to reach, which might be actually higher than what you might have set for them. So then you would check regularly with your students after each read, and Mitch will go over this as well. The kids actually get to graph how they did on their read, how many words they read in a minute, and they can really monitor and check their goal to see, am I on my way to meeting my goal, and really having that ownership in their learning. And then at the end of that coaching cycle, sorry, that's the coach in me. At the end of that intervention cycle, you would then progress monitor. There's other benchmark assessments as well to go over with them. So I'm gonna actually,
good morning,
am I gonna go through it?
Okay. Good. I am here today because we are going to practice.
So this video is me. I don't know if you guys know Tiffany Morrison. She is a high school teacher at Northern. Her son Decker was so kind to be my little guinea pig and do this little video with me. She mentioned that was something she wanted to work on with him this summer. So she said, go for it, have him do a video and be a celebrity. So I'm gonna fast forward through it a little bit because it is about 5 minutes. It takes about a minute to assess the student, but then I also had a little pre-conference with him, and then at the end I did have a post, I deleted that part. But then it takes a few minutes for me to kind of walk you through how the assessment works. So I'm gonna just jump around.
Good morning, Decker. How are you? Good. I have you here.
So I kind of explained to him why he was there and what he was going to do.
Many animals blend
And I'm
in
marking on the paper as he
They
reads.
do this to keep themselves safe. Tree frogs are animals that live in trees and grasses around water. Tree frogs blend in with
So I timed him for a minute.
around
He went through. He repeated a word.
that they're
Just get through this. And then, excuse me, there are two comprehension questions you asked, just to get some simple comprehension.
Why is it helpful for animals to blend in with things around them?
to stay protected from other things.
Awesome.
So this is where we would analyze
So
which
to score
students
this
are.
passage, what we would do is we would first look at how many words were read total. So you can see here that I put a bracket at the end of where Decker stopped. So that is the ending of where he read. These little numbers throughout give you an idea of how many words per minute were read by that point of the story. So here we can see the closest one to the bracket is the 75, so we'd add one more, and that would be 76 words per minute. But sometimes a student might have some errors, so we need to go back and check those errors and subtract that from our total. So in this story, Decker read frogs as frog, so that would be considered an error. Here he repeated green, so that's not an error, R just means repeated. And then here he said there instead of R, that they're gray instead of that are gray. So that's another error, so he has two errors. So instead of 76, his score would be 74. And then to figure out his accuracy, I would take that number, 76, and I would subtract
divide 74 by 76, and I did it with my head, and I was like 98%. It was really 97, so I apologize. It's like my phone's recording.
With things around them.
Then we look at that.
And he says stay protected from other things. We are looking for kids to have a very strong accuracy, preferably above 95, potentially 98% accuracy to be considered passing for accuracy. And then words correct per minute, it's going to be based on their grade level. This passage is a level B, and that's considered to be about a 3rd grade level passage. And the student I just assessed is in 3rd grade. So at a 3rd grade level, he's reading 74 words correct per minute. There are scales out there that you can look at for words correct per minute to see at what point, benchmark point of the year, fall, winter, spring, a student should be at. And at 3rd grade, at this point of the year, we should be at about 112 words per minute.
And this is what
So
we'll
at
be
this
using as
point,
the
we would figure out how long the intervention cycle was going to be. Let's say a student was in an intervention cycle for 4 weeks. We would take the number that is listed under how many
Average
words they
weekly
should grow
improvement.
per week. In this situation, Decker is reading 74
It's
words
kind of
correct
here.
per minute. So he is in between like the 10 and 25th percentile here. So we would look at that final column that shows 1.0 and 0.7 as how many words should be read per week. 8 times 4 weeks.
So you would just multiply like that number, 0.9 times how many weeks the intervention would be going, and it might be like 3.2, but obviously it's closer to 3. We're probably gonna do 3 words. We don't want to overwhelm the kids. Now the kids might set a goal for themselves, it's like 10 or 15, and many of those kids can achieve them. So we just wanna set a reasonable goal, and this is based on research, that is good for the kids. So if you as a teacher are setting a goal and making an intervention plan and creating that goal for the student, you would follow these guidelines, but as Mitch will show you, that if you are giving that ownership to the students and goal setting with your students, that they're giving them that autonomy and having them do the goal setting themselves. So the last piece here is just a little overview of the program. We have these different levels. This is a little shift from what I'm seeing and what I've been explained, so I think I'm gonna have to go back and like rethink this, because I think I've always thought this was more 3rd grade, but it seems like it's kind of a mix here, which is making a little more sense with data I'm seeing. But we're seeing how many high frequency words, the types of patterns and phonics that are being used, and then the books that we get 3 books per level, A through F. And each book, you can pick a resource from any of them. And we like their text sets, so they can be on dinosaurs. Once you pick that set, there are all these stories on dinosaurs, and you would go through all of them with that group before you move on to the next. But they're all about the same level. I'm noticing though with this resource here that the difference is how many words are in the passage. So book C is gonna have, book 3 is gonna have more words on a page than book 1. So it'll depend, I think that'll be good knowledge for teachers in the future too, to see, okay, like my students are reading more, they're not where I want them yet at words per minute, but we're not ready to move on to the next level. So maybe picking a story from book 3 might be a better option, because then they can go farther.
So my part's kind of explaining the curricular part in the classroom. So Quick Reads comes with a manual like this. There are 3 books for every level, and as you saw, there are like 6 or 7 levels. Each book focuses on kind of 2 different focuses. So book 1 usually is civics and life science, so it's kind of bringing in our other content areas. And book 2 and 3, history, geography, kind of stemming between social studies content and science. So what's really nice about that as a teacher is you can kind of sometimes, when you pick a book, know what your students like and find a way to kind of build some background knowledge, and then pick within that section of 5 passages, all leveled around the same, but around the similar topic, but different parts of a topic. So as we're using that in class, it's been nice to build background knowledge for students on a topic within a text that's at their level, even if a topic is something a little bit higher level thinking, but again, it's scaffolded for them. And all of them are meant to be read in about a minute. So the way that this kind of works then in the classroom is you do multiple reads, because research shows that when kids repeat a passage and reread it with good modeling, that their fluency can grow from that. So the first read is often where you kind of present it to the students, introduce the topic for the day, and say, I want you to take as long as you can, as long as you need, to read through the passage and find any words that are tricky, try to see if you understand what it's about, and then the way we copy it is to, let's leave it on that for a second. Thanks. Is to have them jot something down, something that stood out to them. Oftentimes on the first read, it's not the right thing, just usually a fun fact. So the multiple reads also helps focus them in that fluency isn't just about reading at the right pace, which it is, it's also understanding what we're reading. And so that this resource lets us kind of blend those two and really focus on both. The second read then is where I, as a teacher, model efficient, appropriate reading at a minute rate. So I set my timer, they hear me read. Sometimes I point out there's commas or different things that impact how we read. So I spend time doing that, but overall it takes about a minute. And then the third read is where they get to go back for the third time with a partner. They swap their packets and they listen to their partner read, and in a minute time each other to see how far they can read. Oftentimes it's around where they first started, but as the week progresses, they kind of build their fluency. So now just to kind of break those down, this is what student work kind of looks like. So they read the passage first, and then they wrote what they thought the big idea was from the passage. Then I model it, or as Ashley shows, she models it. Oftentimes on the camera, showing like, again, parentheses, things that stand out. And then after hearing it read to them, then they get to practice that with a partner and calculate, just like kind of what Ashley was showing, their own rate per minute, because it's done in a minute. We have them write that down, and then they get to keep track of it every single day. So this is a sheet that's not part of the curriculum. They have their own, but it shows all of the passages, and the kids have these tiny little boxes. So as a team, we just thought, what's a way to kind of, in a week's worth of learning, let kids sort of track how they're growing. And the video here is just kind of me walking through, hey, we took math fluency, the computer said you're reading about this rate, what sounds like a good goal, we talk about like what data scientists know about reading. Oftentimes 10 is just kind of a good one to go to, because in about 5 or 6 weeks of an intervention cycle, it's about 10 words when you do the math at wherever their actual level is. And then by the end, after a week or after those 4 weeks, we have kids just see if they made that goal and try to come up with another one.
Should we play the video?
Yes. Sure.
This is goal setting with his students in his class.
Alright, so we're back here to talk about our fluency and keep working on making our reading smoother and a little bit faster than expected. So yesterday, I know we worked as a group and we kind of did some practice readings of some passages, and we filled out our old sheet with how many words per minute we read. Let's go back and put that score for you as your starting fluency today. Can you fill in for yesterday again the rate that you read? So Josie, let's write yesterday's date, which was 5/12. 5/12. I want you to chart how much you read yesterday. Josie, you read, and then you read again. And remember, just a quick scribble. I'll show you two with mine. Both had 89. We're using our chart and recording so you can see how much we grew. Great. So you get to set your goal, starting with your fluency from yesterday. What do you want your growth goal to be? Go ahead and think about that. We said on average of about 10. So if you add 10 to the starting fluency, that could be a great goal. If you think it could be more than that, add more than 10. Remember, a second grade goal is about 100 words.
I also reminded them of like what benchmark is too, right? They want to grow, but also try to achieve the second grade level. So I was just reminding them that 100 words is where they should be by the end of the year. So they're kind
Let's
of
get
right
started
there.
now that we know our goal.
So that's just an example.
Alright, so we know with good fluency also comes good comprehension. So another piece of this that we're excited about is the comprehension resources that come with the program. We have been primarily using the one on the left in our groups at Meadowbrook. But the great thing about it is each passage just has two questions. So it's still short and sweet, but in our time that we have with our kiddos, we're able to teach some specific comprehension skills. We even kind of do things like if we see these two questions, those two answers don't make any sense, get those out of there so that we can really focus in and have some good conversation about the other two to determine the correct answer. There's ones that they get to do a little written response to, so lots of different practice with some good comprehension skills. There's also with this another sheet where when they are doing their reads, they can kind of jot down some important facts or the main topic that they get to. And then once we've finished all the different passages in a topic, so if it was this one, we would have gotten to all those. There's some questions that kind of synthesize all of the topics we've learned about, which is great. They can do some compare contrast. They can just put all of their ideas together and figure out how they're all connected. this is a resource that we have not used yet, but are excited to maybe jump into as an option, just a different way that they can track their learning and comprehension. That one's more that they can keep track of their vocabulary and new facts they're excited about and kind of take ownership of their own learning in that way. And I like the last part, what else I want to learn, so kind of to encourage that curiosity as they build their comprehension and background knowledge on a topic as well. So lots of great resources that come with the program. And then these are 2 other bonus resources that we've discovered. And again, we haven't used these yet either. We're kind of learning as we go this year with it being a brand new resource, but a great one for parents that we can support that homeschool connection and help our learners at home, different ways they can work on reading, listening, and speaking, and those real world connections with their families. And just to celebrate our students as they're building their fluency, as they complete different levels, and just to make a big deal out of it, because making those gains is really exciting for our kiddos, and we want them to feel that way too. So continue. We are just continuing to grow, as I said, and exploring more in this resource, learning as we go with the kids, figuring out what works best for each group of kids as well. Different ones, as you saw the different resources, we might use different pieces and parts of it as we track their learning and help them grow, but we're really excited about this resource. So, thanks for letting us share it.
I read the majority of it.
Wow.
Did you time yourself?
No, I think I hit the minute. I think it was a nice Sunday afternoon tonight. A couple Sundays actually. It was a very interesting process.
Thank you for letting us share our excitement about this resource with you all. Do you have any questions?
I love it. This is like, I teach, you talk a lot about this with my college students in our literacy classes. So it's really fun to see it, you know, in action with like real life students. And I love the videos. Don't ever feel like you have to like rush through the videos. It's really, they're good. You did a great job with that. So I really like that parent connection too. That is something that I feel like is so beneficial for parents. Teaching a kid to read is a really intricate process, and every kid might struggle with different pieces of becoming a fluent reader. And so I love that you can give parents some very specific things to work on, not just read more. Because read more doesn't help a kid if they are struggling with reading to begin with. So I love that there's some very specific things that parents can actually do to move that needle with their students. Exactly.
I think it's interesting because the minute could be a bit of anxiety, I think, to a student that and then their peer is getting the minute and getting more, but the way you structure it with the graph and this and set your own goal and it's your own pace, I think really brings it to their level, and they can then be more proficient in that versus everybody do that in a minute. 'Cause I can go back ages where it's like, and it's more math, but do 100 questions in a minute and I'm literally like sweating. So as a 4th grader, but I think this is different and it's more inviting, which I appreciate.
Yeah, and I between watching teachers do it or if I've modeled in some classes, it's so important to us to really build that connection with the kids and build that trust so they understand the purpose of it and they don't feel that way. There's always going to be a couple kids who do feel that way because they're just predominantly maybe a little more anxious to begin with. But we've had different techniques and things to do, like, you know what, we're not gonna time. We want you to be doing it on your own. You're gonna read it out loud. We're listening to support you to make sure that we see improvement, we're hearing improvement. But if it's the actual timer that's stressing that child out, we don't want to do that.
That's great.
So we've made those changes for those kids.
It's nice that we're able to personalize it and they can take ownership of their learning with this program.
Thank you very much.
You're welcome. Thank you for having us.
I just want to give a shout out to we're lucky in Forest Hills because Ashley and Samantha are brand new to us from other districts. So new employees. And Mitch, you've been here for a while now.
Mitch has been here for a while.
Thank you so much.
I felt like this would be a good presentation, because then you can see when you say yes to resources, how those resources are getting used. Like I said, reading is rocket science, and the more that we continue to learn about it, it's very technical in nature. And you can see the individual time spent with students, so very appreciative of all of that.
Leverage it closes the loop, which is nice.
Okay, moving into the action items, we'll be looking for approval of the minutes from April 16th And then also those recommendations, we're recommending the approval of the grade 8 junior kindergarten curriculum. And with that, I will move it over to superintendent's update.
Can I ask some questions real
Sure.
quick on grade first aid before? Is that okay?
Sure.
Okay.
I don't really have anything.
Well.
I really don't.
You don't, okay.
There are a lot of
All right, I'm
meetings.
still on your
You're on
spot.
graduation.
So sorry, I got them on my, so just some questions. I mean, I appreciate the work that goes into it and the curriculum team, you know, to bring stuff to us, but I had a chance to, you know, review, I asked you some questions to, and then I gotta read, I had some parental feedback stuff, and so of course it just brings more questions of just asking a few things. So, but if you don't mind, I just, hang on a second, we're gonna go right to. So I was looking at the schedule for the junior kindergarten, and it kind of just showed, is that like the actual daily schedule? Was that just kind of recommended, or is that like?
Is there a specific part on there? 'Cause
Yeah, well, I was adding up all the minutes, like we're just a little over 5 hours, and I'm guessing this, right, well, lunch is included, but half that time is like lunch and quiet time and, recess, about half that. But aren't there, I'm guessing the program is gonna run alongside of what the elementary is, right? Like 8:30 to 3:30-ish or 3:35 or whatever. So there's kind of a couple hours in there that was not on the schedule, so I was just curious.
It would
Do we
align,
have
it would align
plans?
with our schedule. I don't know, I'm trying to go from memory. I don't think that one had our specials
It didn't.
built into that.
Okay,
so that-
okay, so that's what,
yeah.
that's not in there, okay. And I was just curious, so I was looking at it and I'm like, okay, well.
Are they gonna get
Couple
all
hours.
the same specials?
So they are,
Same
okay,
specials.
okay, okay,
And
so
then
that,
specials and media center also.
okay, okay, that helps out that. And then another question that I had was, hang on a second, I just wanna make sure I'm not repeating myself on this, sorry. I asked about, the iPads, right, the iPads, and do we know what we have planned use for, like, what to use those for? I mean, I know there's a lot of stats out there, right, with iPad usage for young people, and it kind of goes the opposite a little bit for the literacy, you know, I mean, this is a program, you know, that, you know, going forward for curriculum, so I was just curious, like, what was the goal, or what, you know, can you just kind of.
So Seesaw
Kinda help me
is
understand.
Seesaw is one of the recommended communication tools, and so students can film a project that they're doing. The predominant learning is not tech-based, it's more of a play-based, and so it's more of, the iPad is more of a supplementary aid, if you will. So I don't know if you're familiar with Seesaw. I don't want to say it's an LMS system, but it's a way to communicate and capture student learning. They could communicate, they'll have a secure account, they'll have a family account where parents can kind of window into their learning.
Most elementary classrooms use it already.
Yeah.
So like all day long, like a teacher might send pictures of like the kids working on a group project together via Seesaw. So you can see what your kids are doing during the day. And then kids can also put things into their own Seesaw account too. And you have to like have a special login to be able to view it.
Do we know approximately like how much time that, is it just kind of an ongoing thing throughout the day?
You would use that to capture, like in the past, they've used it to capture, like, for example, I just remember when we used them at Nat Forest, it would be like, hey, mom and dad, I'm gonna demonstrate some of my fluency skills, and they might read for their parents, specific to their parents, and so that's sort of the nature. If they have a project that they want to show or document, they can use for that.
The iPads too are now one-to-one.
Yeah.
So our classrooms, you know, K now have the Chromebooks one-to-one, but for this it's 5. And then 6, they recommend 6 if you wanna have them also for, one of the rotations is a listening. So being able to listen to books and different items, music, play, you know, what they're doing, so it's not a one-to-one.
Is this something that you think that they'll use during their quiet time as well?
They
Like if they're gonna
could.
use it for instructional Seesaw, you know, so the potential is to have it I mean, I know they have to share it, right, because there's only 5 or like 6, what did we say, 6 per unit that you were saying? So they have the potential to use it during that, I don't remember what the schedule was for that. You know,
So they could take pictures of work and send them home. They could record, like Scott said, videos, and send them home. It's a direct link to families, so then families can also talk back to the kids as well. I think too, there is rest time and there are developmentally appropriate times where the kids, you know, might be doing different things, but even some of that structured play. So although it might seem like it's all rest or all play, it's really, really nicely done to where kids, you know, it might appear downtime, but it's not as much down. I mean, there's downtime developmentally appropriate. Obviously, the kids will need rest, but it could be that it's playtime, but it could be in like a construction setting. So really, there's math interwoven in that, you know, literacy, all of those things as well throughout the day.
And I would say our young students, even our kindergarten students, if they need a rest time, they're going to take a rest time, whether you're going to give it to them or not. We've seen kids, you know, fall asleep during the day, whether or not it's planned or not. I mean, when they move from that, you know, wherever it was they were before into the school day, that can be a tough transition for some.
I was just asking, because I know sometimes, you know, you see, you know, we didn't have that access for my kids, you know, and so you start to see young moms and dads out there that's a tool to, you know, and so I guess that's why I'm more curious is it gonna be used as a tool like, well, my quiet time, I wanna play a game on this thing, and it's like, you know what I mean, like it's not going to be open, you know, or watching a video, or,
I think
you know, somebody, does that make sense? Like,
It does, I hear what you're saying, but I think that like in
it's,
many
you know,
classrooms, it's used as a very intentional, like, station that kids would visit, and like Kim was saying, like maybe they have to listen to a book at that station, and they might get like 10 minutes, and then they have to rotate to their next station, which would be like another hands-on activity. So I don't ever get the impression that it's just, even in my own 4th graders classroom, they're not just like freely scrolling on an iPad. There's like a task that they have to finish.
Okay.
We just had literacy nights at all the schools, and in fact, the thinking is the opposite of that. So all of our schools gave out bags and little tags, so like if you're out and about and you're at a restaurant, instead of doing something digital, here's some different things you can do with your kids. It won't be, you know, digital, so we definitely have that in mind, and that would not.
Right, because I mean, you take a look at, or, you know, go out in the public now and people are waiting at the restaurant even, it's, everybody up their thing is on the device, and it's like, that's not really the world, right? That we want our kids looking down, and our kids are look up and be expressed with,
I think
you know,
we've been pretty
communication and
intentional
stuff.
about trying to put books in the hands of our students, whenever possible. I don't see a situation where our most developing students are in front of a device for the majority of their day, or without a specific task that's academically focused. That's not a great use of time in our classrooms.
Okay, because I know you just said like listening to things on that. Don't we have devices already in some of the classrooms that we just purchased last year that does that? So is that something we can use here, or is it already being used elsewhere and you have to?
Well, these are new classrooms, and
Right.
so I don't know that we would be taking from one classroom to put in there, and I'm not sure an iPad has a lot of functions to it, and so that's just one of them, as Kim had mentioned, to be a listening station. And quite honestly, it's a pretty expensive listening device, but fortunately the iPad gives you the capability of recording for families to view things and to learn from. So there's multiple things you can do with an iPad.
Right. Another question too that I just had in reading, I know that, is that Nell Duke, I want to call her Duke Nell, I don't know why. Has a quote here that it says, like on the curriculum, it says, Great First Aid is a groundbreaking all-day open instructional resource curriculum for children from birth of age 8 that is strength-based and research-aligned. It is designed for classroom with a number of children from historically underrepresented racial and ethnic backgrounds. Great First Aid provides children with the education they need to thrive and create a more just and caring society. And I guess I was curious, is that, are we united in the fact that we believe that this that this demographic meets the needs of the majority of our Forest Hill students. What sheet has this program? There was another thing that stated that if you didn't have this demographic greatly, that this wasn't the program for you. There's another quote in there that states that. So I was just curious to see, you know, do you feel like that we believe that this demographic meets the needs of the majority of our Forest Hill students for junior kindergarten?
I think it perfectly aligns with the needs in Forest Hills. I think it meets the needs of all students. As a matter of fact, when I look at just some of the demographics from Meadowbrook, for example, the teachers who were just here a minute ago, it hits the nail on the head when I look at what types of students, what those backgrounds represent. Is precisely what is found in there. I don't think that it takes away. I think it only adds to what we're offering.
Let's see if I got one more. And I'm just doing this because I know I've had conversations with, you know, that questions have come up with. So, but, I think that's it.
Okay. Thank you. Good questions.
Okay, is that it?
No?
All right.
Did you come up with some really good things?
I had some things. I was just gonna recognize that, at the board meeting, we will have, some tentative agreements that we'll bring forward. We won't do a closed session for that because they all fall within the parameters that the board gave, when we, were in closed session and so on. So we're really excited about that. We have only two of our employee groups left, who, we don't have meetings before that particular, board meeting. So, but many thanks to the team that has been negotiating with Julie, Scott, and Christine. And Christine's been tenacious in getting this stuff on the schedule and making sure it's done before she goes. So I really appreciate that. We're at the offer stages of our HR assistant superintendent position and the OB principal. Hopefully we'll have those at the Monday meeting as well, is what the plan is. And then just as a reminder, Monday, the Kent ISD will be here to talk to us about the recreational millage. So just reminding you about that as well. So those are the things I wanted to mention. Oh, graduation night too, just as a reminder.
Thanks.
I heard. You gotta be someplace.
Yeah, that's it.
All right, that concludes our board curriculum. Thanks everyone for being here.